My name is Dr. Evelyn Radford. I am 32 years old, and in approximately 3 hours, my name will cease to mean what it has meant for the past decade of my life. In 3 hours, the title that comes before my name will be stripped away. In 3 hours, a courtroom that is designed to dispense justice will instead dispense destruction. In 3 hours, I will understand that the legal system is not a mechanism for protecting truth, but rather a mechanism for enforcing power. I am standing in a courtroom in Connecticut. The courtroom is located in a building that was constructed in the 1970s and that has been maintained with the kind of careful attention that suggests the building itself is supposed to inspire confidence. The walls are paneled with mahogany. The fixtures are brass. The floor is polished marble that reflects the overhead lights in a way that creates the impression of clarity and order. But the clarity and order that this room is supposed to represent is an illusion. The clarity and order are performance. The actual purpose of this room is to enforce the will of powerful people. And today, the powerful person whose will is being enforced is Cornelius Blackwood, who is the judge presiding over my case and who is also, coincidentally, the father of my ex-husband. This is not a coincidence. The judge in a trial is supposed to be someone with no personal interest in the outcome. The judge in a trial is supposed to be someone who can evaluate evidence according to established legal standards. The judge in a trial is supposed to be someone who has the capacity and the willingness to ensure that justice is actually dispensed. Cornelius Blackwood is none of these things. Cornelius Blackwood has a very significant personal interest in my destruction. Cornelius Blackwood left my ex-husband 5 years ago, and since that time, I have attempted to live my life according to principles that do not align with his understanding of how family should operate. I have attempted to be independent. I have attempted to make decisions based on my own values rather than based on the values that Cornelius believes I should have. I have attempted, in other words, to exist as a person rather than as an extension of his power. And Cornelius Blackwood has decided that this is unacceptable. Cornelius Blackwood has decided that I need to be punished. Cornelius Blackwood has decided that the way to punish me is to use the legal system to destroy my career and my reputation. The trial that is occurring today is a trial in which I am accused of misappropriating hospital funds. I am accused of taking money that was designated for a charitable surgery program and transferring it to my personal account. I am accused of using the hospital's resources and the trust of patients to commit fraud. I know that this accusation is false. I know that I have never misappropriated any funds. I know that I have never transferred money from the hospital to my personal account. I know that the bank records that the prosecution is about to present to the court have been falsified. I know all of these things with absolute certainty, but what I also know is that none of this matters. What matters is that Cornelius Blackwood is a judge and that he has power. What matters is that the legal system is designed to serve the interests of people like Cornelius Blackwood. What matters is that I have no protection against the abuse of that power. My attorney is a woman named Sarah Chen. Sarah Chen is a competent attorney who understands the law and who understands my situation. Sarah Chen is also a woman who is about to discover that competence and understanding are insufficient when confronted with judicial corruption. The prosecution begins its case. The courtroom is bright, almost cruelly so. Fluorescent lights hum above us, washing the room in a cold, sterile glare. Every detail feels magnified. The faint scrape of a chair, the shuffle of paper, the sharp click of the stenographer's keys. The jury sits in rigid attention, 12 strangers whose faces blend into one impression of solemnity and fatigue. Behind them, the gallery is half full, a murmur of public curiosity that ebbs and flows like static. The prosecution moves with precision. They present bank records. Thick binders of printed statements, highlighted in yellow, stamped with official seals. The prosecutor, a man with silver hair and a voice trained to sound reasonable, walks the jury through each page. His tone is practiced, measured outrage tempered by authority. He points to my name as if it were a fingerprint left at a crime scene. The records, he says, show money moving from a hospital account to an account that bears my name. The implication is simple. The narrative is clean. And in the architecture of accusation, simplicity is power. They call hospital administrators to testify. They sit in the witness chair, eyes darting toward Cornelius, speaking in cautious tones. Each insists they never authorized the transfers. Each insists that they were shocked to discover what had occurred. The performance is flawless. They sound like victims of my alleged deception. And I, seated beside my attorney, become the abstraction they must condemn to preserve themselves. The prosecution builds a story that is clear, complete, and convincing. A story that transforms me into the exact kind of person this courtroom was designed to punish. Intelligent enough to be dangerous, professional enough to make betrayal sting. Sarah Chen, my attorney, stands. Her voice is steady, but I can hear the tension beneath it. The strain of fighting a battle on uneven ground. She attempts to challenge the bank records. She calls an expert witness, a forensic accountant with credentials longer than the prosecutor's resume, prepared to testify about document authenticity. But before the witness can speak, Cornelius interrupts. The defense is attempting to confuse the issue with irrelevant technical testimony, he says. His tone is smooth, almost bored. The bank records speak for themselves. The jury can examine them and reach their own conclusions. Sarah straightens. Your Honor, testimony about document authenticity is directly relevant to whether these documents are real. The jury cannot assess their meaning without first determining whether they are genuine. Cornelius's expression hardens slightly, though his voice remains polite. I have made my ruling, he says. Next question. The gavel strikes once, a sound that feels like a door locking. Sarah sits down slowly, her jaw tight. I can see her calculating. How much to protest, how much to risk by angering the man who has already decided what this trial will mean. Undeterred, she tries again. She presents records from my personal bank account, obtained directly from the institution, showing that the money was never received. She shows transaction logs, timing discrepancies, audit trails that contradict the prosecution's version of events. The evidence suggests one thing only. The prosecution's documents have been forged. But each time she presents proof, Cornelius interrupts. Each time she builds a bridge toward truth, he cuts the ropes. Objection, the prosecutor says. Irrelevant. Sustained, Cornelius replies without pause. Objection, speculative. Sustained. Objection, hearsay. Sustained. And so it goes. An hour, then another, until Sarah's voice begins to sound like defiance itself. The jury's eyes glaze, conditioned by repetition. They have learned which voice holds power in this room, and it is not hers. Cornelius's rulings shape the air we breathe. He creates an atmosphere of futility, where defense feels like interruption and truth feels like insolence. The jurors, deprived of context, are left with fragments that seem to confirm the prosecution's tidy narrative. By the second day, I understand what is happening. This is not a trial. This is theater. And Cornelius is both director and audience. The trial lasts 3 days. 3 long, unbroken days of accusation, suppression, and silence. The verdict, when it comes, feels almost merciful in its inevitability. The jury foreman stands, holding the folded paper in both hands. His expression carries the weight of uncertainty, eyes downcast, voice low. We find the defendant guilty on all counts. The words land softly but spread like fire. Guilty of fraud. Guilty of theft. guilty of betraying the trust of the institution I once served. The air shifts. Somewhere behind me, someone exhales. A reporter's pen scratches against paper. Cameras flash once, twice, each light a small explosion. The sound of the gavel follows, final and dull. It is done. The consequences come quickly. Within hours, the hospital where I work files a motion to suspend my medical license. Within 2 days, the State Board of Medicine convenes an emergency hearing. They review the conviction, not the evidence, not the transcripts, not the corruption embedded in the process, just the verdict. They decide that they have no choice. The phrase repeats like a mantra in bureaucratic documents. No choice but to suspend. No choice but to protect the public. No choice but to act as if justice has been done. Within 3 days, I am no longer Dr. Evelyn Radford. Within 3 days, I am simply Evelyn Radford. A woman stripped of title, credibility, and purpose. The media devours the story. Headlines flare with self-righteous precision. Cardiac surgeon convicted of financial fraud. Betrayal in the operating room. Each article presents the narrative as fact, a morality tale about ambition and greed. None mention judicial misconduct. None mention the name Cornelius Blackwood. My photograph appears on television screens and social media feeds. The caption below reads, "Former physician sentenced in corruption case." No one questions the adjective former. No one questions how easily a life can be rewritten. After the verdict, I try to speak with Ethan. He has been in the courtroom every day, seated behind his father, expression unreadable. He has watched as I was cross-examined, watched as evidence in my favor was dismissed, watched as his father orchestrated my ruin. He has had every chance to say something, to rise, to object, to simply walk away. He did none of those things. When I find him outside the courthouse, he is standing beneath the marble columns, phone in hand, staring at nothing. "Do you believe me?" I ask. The question is not a plea. My voice is steady, clinical. "Do you believe that I did not commit the crimes I've been convicted of?" He doesn't answer immediately. His gaze drifts to the horizon, to the courthouse steps, to anywhere but my face. When he finally speaks, his voice is soft. "My father told me something many years ago," Ethan says. "He told me that the legal system isn't designed to find truth. It's designed to enforce the will of powerful people. He told me that sometimes the law is used to punish those who threaten power." "That isn't an answer," I say. "I know." He swallows. "The answer is that I don't know what to believe. I've spent my whole life inside a family where believing anyone other than my father was impossible." His words are honest. They are also devastating. I nod once. Not in forgiveness, but in acknowledgement. I understand now that silence is its own kind of loyalty, and its own kind of betrayal. I leave the courthouse alone. The afternoon sun has already begun to fade, replaced by a muted, metallic light that flattens everything. The sidewalk feels unfamiliar beneath my feet, as if I am walking through someone else's life. I pass the entrance to the hospital where I once worked. The automatic doors slide open and close, swallowing white coats and anxious relatives. Inside, I glimpse the faint green glow of monitors, the rhythmic pulse of machines keeping time with human hearts. Near the entrance, there is a plaque mounted on the wall. I have passed it countless times before without really seeing it. Now, it feels almost accusatory. The plaque reads, "Do no harm." The words are etched in brass, polished to a mirror finish. I stare at them and wonder, is harm only something physicians can commit? Or can it also be committed by judges and systems and men who use power like a scalpel, precise and cold, cutting away the lives of others under the pretense of order? I reach into my wallet and remove a small, worn photograph. The edges are frayed from years of handling. It shows a woman in a laboratory coat, hair pulled back, holding a pipette. She is smiling, her eyes bright with curiosity. She looks like someone who believes the world can be improved through knowledge. The woman is my mother. She disappeared when I was 9. I was told it was an accident, a fire in the research facility. I was told she died instantly, without pain. But memory tells me otherwise. Memory tells me there were questions left unanswered, files left missing, truths buried deep beneath corporate archives. I stand there for a long time, the photograph trembling slightly between my fingers, the plaque glinting in the fading light. And in that moment, I understand something. Harm is not confined to scalpels and syringes. Harm is silence. Harm is the system that confuses obedience with integrity. Harm is the lie that justice and truth are always the same. 6 months after my conviction, I am living in New Haven, Connecticut. I am living in a small apartment in a neighborhood where people do not have significant financial means. I am living in a place where I am unknown, where my name means nothing, where I can exist without the weight of my former identity. I have found work as a medical ethics consultant. Yale University has hired me to teach seminars about the ethical frameworks that should govern medical practice. Yale University has hired me despite knowing about my conviction because Yale University has bothered to look beyond the headlines. Yale University has hired me because my experience, as painful as it is, has given me insights that are valuable. I teach classes about the ways that power can corrupt decision-making in clinical settings. I teach about the importance of maintaining integrity in the face of pressure. I teach about the consequences of allowing systems to override individual conscience. I teach these things with the authority of someone who has experienced the consequences of choosing integrity over compliance. It is during the second semester of my teaching that something extraordinary occurs. I am in my office on a Thursday afternoon. I am preparing for a class about the ethics of confidentiality in medicine. I am preparing to teach my students about the situations in which physician confidentiality must be maintained and the situations in which the obligation to confidentiality is overridden by the obligation to protect others from harm. There is a knock on my office door. When I open the door, I find a woman standing in the hallway. The woman is in her late 50s. The woman has gray hair. The woman has intelligent eyes. The woman appears to be nervous and determined. "Dr. Radford," the woman says, "my name is Constance Drummond. I was a secretary to your mother many years ago. I worked for Margaret Radford when she was conducting her scientific research at the hospital where you now work. I have come to Yale because I believe it is time for you to know the truth about what happened to your mother." I invite Constance into my office. I close the door. I ask her to sit down. I listen as she tells me a story that contradicts everything I have believed about my mother's death. "Your mother," Constance begins, "did not die in an accident. Your mother is still alive. Your mother has been living in hiding for the past 20 years. Your mother has been collecting evidence against Cornelius Blackwood." I do not respond immediately to what Constance has told me. I sit very still and attempt to process a statement that fundamentally contradicts my understanding of my own life and my own history. "Why would my mother go into hiding?" I finally ask. "Because," Constance says, "Cornelius Blackwood stole her research. Your mother had developed a new approach to cardiac surgery. Your mother had discovered a technique that could save lives. Your mother had conducted extensive research and had published papers about this technique in peer-reviewed medical journals." Constance removes a folder from her bag. Constance opens the folder and shows me documents. The documents are correspondence between my mother and various people at the hospital. The documents are evidence that my mother attempted to report the theft of her research through official channels. The documents are evidence that every attempt my mother made to seek justice was met with retaliation and intimidation. "Your mother was fired from her position at the hospital," Constance continues. Your mother was told that if she continued to pursue the matter, she would face legal charges. Your mother was told that Cornelius Blackwood would use the legal system to destroy her completely. Constance reaches into her bag and removes several additional items. Constance places on my desk a series of documents. Constance places on my desk a USB drive. Constance places on my desk stock certificates. These are Blackwood Industries stock certificates, Constance says. These represent 15% of Blackwood Industries. Your mother has been accumulating these shares for many years. Your mother wanted you to have them. Why would my mother want me to have stock in Cornelius Blackwood's company? I ask. Because, Constance says, these shares give you leverage. These shares give you the ability to challenge Cornelius Blackwood. These shares give you the ability to do something that your mother could not do alone. Constance places the USB drive on my desk. On this USB drive, Constance says, is a recording. The recording is your mother's voice. The recording is your mother explaining what happened to her. The recording is your mother explaining what she needs you to do. I ask Constance to leave me alone with the USB drive. After Constance leaves, I close my office door. I close the blinds on the windows. I plug the USB drive into my computer. The recording begins to play, and I hear a voice that I have not heard in more than 20 years. I hear my mother's voice. Evelyn, the recording begins. If you are hearing this recording, then Constance has found you. If you are hearing this recording, then you know the truth about what happened to me. My mother's voice pauses. I can hear her breathing. I can hear her gathering her emotions before continuing. I have spent the past 20 years, my mother continues, attempting to be strong enough to do what I could not do for myself. I have spent the past 20 years gathering evidence against Cornelius Blackwood. I have spent the past 20 years understanding that I would never be able to fight him alone, that I would need you, that I would need my daughter to have the courage that I did not have. My mother's voice becomes quieter, more intimate. I am so sorry, she says. I am sorry that I disappeared. I am sorry that I left you with the belief that I was dead. My mother's voice becomes clearer, more determined. But I want you to know something, Evelyn. I want you to know that every day that I have been away, I have been thinking about you. I want you to know that I am aware of what has happened to you. I know about your trial. I know that Cornelius Blackwood was the judge who presided over your trial. I know that he used his position to destroy your career because you had the audacity to leave his son and to refuse to accept his authority over your life. And I want you to know that I am so deeply sorry that you have had to experience what I have experienced. My mother's voice becomes very strong. But I also want you to know that this is why I waited, she says. This is why I did not reveal myself during your trial. I remained hidden because I knew that if I revealed myself, Cornelius Blackwood would destroy the evidence that I had spent 20 years accumulating. My mother's voice becomes quieter again. I am leaving you everything I have accumulated, she says. I am leaving you the stock certificates. I am leaving you the financial records. I am leaving you the documentation of Cornelius Blackwood's crimes. I am leaving you the power to hold him accountable. My mother's voice becomes very quiet now. I do not expect you to forgive me, she says. I only know that I have tried to do the right thing in a way that I know how, and if you choose to pursue this path, you will need to be braver than I have ever been. The recording ends. I sit in my office, and I cry in a way that I have not cried since my conviction. I cry for the mother that I lost. I cry for the woman who spent 20 years away from her only child in order to gather evidence and in order to give me the tools to pursue justice. I meet with an attorney named Lydia Cole. Her office is on the 21st floor of a glass building overlooking the river. The walls are lined with law books, but her desk is almost bare. Just a legal pad, a fountain pen, and a pot of orchids that are beginning to bloom. She greets me with the calm confidence of someone who has seen every variation of power and corruption and knows that neither can truly surprise her anymore. Lydia Cole is a woman in her mid-40s who specializes in corporate law and complex financial matters. Her voice is even, low, and precise. Each sentence feels weighted, deliberate, considered before it is spoken. She listens to my story without interrupting. She doesn't take notes at first, she simply watches me, measuring both the facts and the silences between them. When I finish, she exhales softly and leans back in her chair. "Your mother," she says, "was extraordinarily strategic." The words hang in the air for a moment before she elaborates. "Your mother accumulated these shares over a 20-year period in a way that would not draw attention to herself. She understood the system well enough to move within it quietly. She accumulated them specifically because she knew they would give you leverage within the corporation." "What kind of leverage?" I ask. My voice sounds smaller than I intend. The weight of what I've inherited is beginning to settle on me. "Leverage to call a shareholder meeting," Lydia says. She folds her hands neatly on the desk. "Leverage to propose a resolution to remove the current board of directors. Leverage to challenge the authority of Cornelius Blackwood." The name lands like a stone. For years, he has been a looming presence, a man whose decisions ripple through entire industries, whose approval determines careers. I had never imagined being in a position to challenge him directly. "But I only have 15% of the shares," I say. "Yes," Lydia agrees. "But you have something more important: documentation and motive. There are other shareholders, minority holders, institutional investors, who have grown uneasy under Cornelius Blackwood's leadership. If we present them with evidence of corporate wrongdoing, they might support a removal motion. What your mother did, knowingly or not, was position you to be the catalyst for reform." She begins to review the financial documents that my mother left. The faint sound of paper against paper fills the office. As she turns each page, her expression hardens, her brow furrowing slightly in concentration. Her pen taps once, twice, then stops. "Your mother collected evidence of bribery," Lydia says at last. "Not speculation, evidence. She collected evidence of conflicts of interest involving shell companies and undisclosed partnerships. She collected evidence of corporate violations of federal securities law. Some of these transactions appear designed to evade audit thresholds." I feel a cold shiver run down my spine. The implications are staggering. "What do I need to do?" I ask. "First," Lydia says, "we need to file a complaint with the Securities and Exchange Commission. We need to create an official record with government authorities. That gives you protection as a whistleblower and ensures the investigation cannot be buried internally." "Will that be enough to remove Cornelius Blackwood?" I ask. "Probably not immediately," Lydia says. "Men like Blackwood don't fall overnight. But it will start the clock. Once an official investigation begins, the board will become nervous. Investors will begin to calculate reputational risk. And risk," she adds with a faint smile, "is the one language they all understand." "What else?" I ask. "Second," Lydia says, "we need to approach other shareholders. Quietly. Personally. We need to accumulate enough shareholder support to ensure that a removal motion would pass. Under the bylaws, we need 41% of the shares. So we need 26% more, I calculate." "Correct," Lydia nods. "We'll need to build a coalition, people who believe that change is necessary, even if it means public scrutiny. It won't be easy, but once the momentum shifts, it becomes inevitable." Over the next several months, I work with Lydia almost daily. Her office becomes a kind of war room. Charts and ownership tables cover the whiteboard. We analyze patterns in shareholder voting, trace quiet alliances, and prepare precise dossiers for every potential ally. We approach shareholders individually. No press, no publicity. Lydia handles the introductions with the precision of a strategist. Lunches in quiet restaurants, meetings at private clubs, video calls with camera angles chosen to show confidence without arrogance. I learn how to speak their language: earnings per share, regulatory exposure, market perception. I learn how to frame truth as a form of financial prudence. We present evidence of wrongdoing, carefully, methodically, like surgeons revealing a wound layer by layer. We show them that the numbers do not lie. We show them that Blackwood's empire is not stable, but hollow. Gradually, shareholders begin to indicate that they will support a removal motion, some quietly, some defiantly, some out of principle, some out of fear. The reasons differ, but the outcome is the same. The coalition grows. And then, inevitably, Cornelius Blackwood begins to understand what is happening. The air around the corporation changes. Calls go unanswered. Certain executives resign suddenly to pursue personal opportunities. Board meetings are abruptly postponed. Then one morning, a courier arrives at my apartment with a sealed envelope. No return address. Inside, a single handwritten letter. The paper is thick, expensive, the handwriting sharp and deliberate. Do not pursue this course of action, the letter says. If you do, I will destroy your mother's reputation. I will reveal everything about her. I will make sure that the world understands that your mother is not a victim but a woman driven by revenge and obsession. I read the letter twice. My hands shake, but not from fear, from recognition. This is the same weapon my family once used against me, the threat of humiliation, the invocation of reputation as a shield for wrongdoing. I understand immediately what this is. It is not simply intimidation. It is a test. He believes I will protect my mother's image the way she once protected the family's, through silence. But I have learned something through my own trial. I have learned that the protection of reputation is the language of corruption. It is the mechanism through which truth is buried, through which power preserves itself. So I do what my mother could not. I take the letter to Lydia. She reads it once, then again. She nods slowly, her expression unreadable. This, she says, is evidence of witness intimidation. We file it immediately with the Securities and Exchange Commission as part of the ongoing complaint. We file it with the Department of Justice as evidence of potential obstruction of justice. Lydia's legal assistant delivers the filings in person, ensuring there can be no claim of mishandling. The following week, the SEC investigator acknowledges receipt. By the time they review the letter, our coalition has crossed the threshold. 41% of Blackwood Industries shares committed in writing to the motion for removal. We notify the board of directors that a shareholder meeting will be called in accordance with corporate governance rules. The letter is formal, concise, and final. There is no rhetoric, only fact. The signatures at the bottom speak louder than any argument. Lydia calls me that evening, her voice composed but tinged with something rare: anticipation. We have enough shareholder commitments, she tells me. More than enough. We now hold approximately 52% of shareholder support. The only thing that stands between Cornelius Blackwood and his removal is the meeting itself. For a long moment, neither of us speaks. The city hums faintly outside my window, the sound of traffic, the echo of something ending. Are you ready? Lydia asks. I've been ready for years, I say. And I mean it. Because this is not just about the company or even about justice. It is about breaking another inheritance, the inheritance of silence. It is about turning what my mother built in secret into something visible, accountable, and true. The shareholder meeting takes place in the main conference room of Blackwood Industries. The conference room occupies the entire top floor of the company's headquarters, a wide, glass-walled space designed for authority. The kind of room where every detail has been curated to project control. The polished mahogany table that gleams under recessed lights, the white leather chairs that never squeak, the panoramic windows that frame the city below like a possession. Outside, the sky is gray, a flat, reflective light that mirrors the mood inside. The air feels heavy with anticipation, as if even the HVAC system has decided to hold its breath. Inside the room, every seat is occupied. Every whisper carries weight. Every glance has consequence. Representatives from the Securities and Exchange Commission sit near the back, their badges visible, their notebooks open. Next to them, two members of the Department of Justice, silent, watchful, faces unreadable. Near the side wall, the media has been allowed to observe. Cameras rest on tripods. Microphones extend like antennae. The sound of shuffling papers and restrained coughing creates a kind of nervous rhythm. When Cornelius Blackwood enters the room, the atmosphere changes. He doesn't walk so much as glide, slow, deliberate steps that still command attention. His suit is immaculate, dark navy wool, a subtle pinstripe, a silk tie the color of deep red wine. His cufflinks glint under the ceiling light. His shoes make a measured sound against the marble floor. Soft, expensive. He walks to the head of the table, the seat that has been his for more than 20 years, and sits. He places a leather portfolio before him, unzips it carefully, and removes nothing. He doesn't look at the press, or at the regulators, or even at the shareholders. He looks at me. Our eyes meet across the room. His expression is still, almost serene. Not arrogance exactly. Something more complex. A conviction, perhaps, that no matter what happens here, his identity remains intact. The look of a man who has built an empire on the assumption that rules exist for other people. He believes, even now, that nothing significant is going to occur. The meeting is called to order. The facilitator, a neutral third-party attorney hired by the board, reads the agenda in a voice that echoes slightly in the glass and steel room. Item 1. Proposal for the removal of Chairman and Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Cornelius Blackwood, pursuant to the bylaws of Blackwood Industries. The words hang in the air like a bell tone. Lydia Cole rises. Her gray suit is simple, her posture straight. She looks like she was born for this kind of confrontation. Calm, contained, precise. When she speaks, her voice carries easily across the room, clipped but unwavering. She outlines the motion with surgical precision. She references the documentation. She cites the violations. She speaks of the evidence compiled, the bribery, the conflicts of interest, the falsified disclosures, the pattern of intimidation. Every sentence lands with the quiet weight of inevitability. There are no theatrics, only facts. When she finishes, the room is silent again. The hum of the lights above seems louder now. I stand. The chair scrapes lightly against the polished floor. Every head turns. Cameras tilt. I walk toward the microphone that has been placed near the end of the table. A simple black stem with a small red light glowing at the base. For a moment, I look at the city beyond the windows. The grid of streets, the movement of cars, the faint reflection of my own face in the glass. Then I begin to speak. 20 years ago, I say, a woman named Margaret Radford conducted research that was designed to advance cardiac surgery. My voice echoes slightly, carried by the room's acoustics. I pause long enough to make sure everyone is listening. Cornelius Blackwood stole that research. Cornelius Blackwood forged documents that made it appear as if the research was his own. Cornelius Blackwood published papers under his own name, claiming discoveries that did not belong to him. I reach into my pocket. My hand closes around a small metallic object, the USB drive. It feels heavier than it should, as if it contains not data but the gravity of everything that has happened. I hold it up so that everyone can see. On this drive, I say, is a recording of my mother explaining what happened to her. I insert the drive into the presentation system. The screen behind me comes alive with static, then resolves into a single, still image. A timestamp, a waveform, a voice. My mother's voice. It fills the conference room. She begins calmly, explaining the timeline, the collaboration, the trust, the betrayal. Her tone wavers only once when she speaks about the moment she realized her work, her years of effort, her life's meaning, had been taken from her. She describes the forged documents, the letters of recommendation that turned to blackmail, the quiet warnings from colleagues who told her to stop asking questions. And then she describes the silence that followed, the erasure. Her voice is soft, measured, devastating. When the recording ends, there is a silence so deep it almost hums. No one moves. No one coughs. Even the cameras are still. The city beyond the glass feels far away, like another world entirely. The facilitator clears his throat. His voice sounds small against the enormity of what has just been heard. "Mr. Blackwood," he says, "would you like to respond to the allegations that have been presented?" Cornelius Blackwood stands. He adjusts his jacket slowly, his movements deliberate, ritualistic. He places both hands on the table, the gold watch on his wrist glinting in the light. "I did what was necessary," he says. The words are quiet but sharp, carrying the arrogance of habit. The assumption that necessity justifies anything. "I did what was necessary to protect the interests of this corporation." I take a step forward. "By stealing the work of another scientist?" I ask. "By destroying her career? By lying to federal investigators? By using your position of power to silence anyone who challenged you?" I let the last question hang for a beat, then add, "By presiding over my trial as judge and using that position to destroy me?" There is no answer. His jaw tightens, but his eyes do not move from mine. The facilitator, after a pause, announces that it is time for the shareholders to vote on the removal motion. He explains the procedure in the neutral tone of a man who has seen this before, but never quite like this. Each shareholder will indicate their decision, for or against removal. The tension in the room is palpable, the sound of shuffling papers, of pens clicking, of measured breaths. Lydia stands at the side, arms crossed, expression unreadable. The SEC representatives are taking notes. The facilitator raises his hand. "Those in favor of removal," he says. 52 hands rise. It happens slowly at first, then all at once. A wave of movement across the room, deliberate, irreversible. "Those opposed?" 7 hands. The facilitator nods once. "The motion passes," he says. His voice is calm, but the words are seismic. Cornelius Blackwood is removed from his position as chairman of Blackwood Industries. For a fraction of a second, nothing happens. Then the dam breaks. The room erupts into controlled chaos. Reporters lean forward, cameras flash like lightning. Questions rise and fall, overlapping in a blur of sound. "How long have you known? What happens next? Will there be charges?" The SEC and DOJ representatives exchange quiet looks, murmuring as they jot notes. A corporate historian from the Financial Review whispers, "This will be in tomorrow's headlines." At the head of the table, Cornelius Blackwood sits down. He doesn't speak. He doesn't protest. He simply sits, one hand resting on the portfolio that no longer matters, the other loosely clenched on the table. For the first time, I see not defiance, not confidence, but the faint, dawning awareness of what it means to lose power completely. The cameras continue to flash. The shareholders begin to gather their things. The regulators file out. Lydia gives me a single nod from across the room. Not triumph, but acknowledgement. And I realize that this moment is not about victory. It is about truth, finally occupying the space where lies once ruled. Cornelius Blackwood looks at me one last time, and in that look, I recognize the end of something vast, not just a career, but an era. His empire has fallen, and the room, for all its noise, feels finally, irrevocably clean. 1 year after Cornelius Blackwood is removed from his position as chairman of Blackwood Industries, I have pieced my life back together in a way that I did not anticipate would ever be possible. There are mornings now when I wake to the sound of birds outside my apartment window and, for a few seconds, forget the years that came before. The courtrooms, the sterile hallways, the headlines that carried my name like a warning. I rise, make coffee, walk to campus, and in those quiet steps I realize that peace is not the absence of memory, but the acceptance of it. My medical license has been restored. The conviction that was based on falsified evidence has been overturned. My name, once associated with disgrace, is now attached to words like vindicated, exonerated, cleared. The newspapers printed my reinstatement on the back pages, in smaller font than the scandal that preceded it. But that, too, feels right. Truth rarely arrives with fanfare. It arrives quietly, like dawn after a long night. I have been offered significant compensation for the years that I was prevented from practicing. My attorneys tell me that the figure is historic, that few settlements of its kind have ever been reached. I am grateful, but I do not feel victorious. Money cannot buy back time, cannot erase the ache of the years when I could not touch an operating instrument, when my name was synonymous with deceit in hospital corridors. And so, I have decided not to return to the operating room. I have decided that my path forward involves something different, something quieter, more deliberate. I now teach, and I work as an ethics consultant, helping others understand the moral frameworks within which medicine operates. When I lecture, I begin each class not with a case study, but with a question. What would you do if telling the truth cost you everything? The students always look startled at first, but then, slowly, they begin to talk, to wrestle with the question, to see themselves not as observers of morality, but as participants in it. That is the work now. Not saving hearts with scalpels, but trying to save the soul of a profession from the corrosion of silence. I have created the Margaret Radford Foundation. The foundation is named for my mother, though it is also, in a way, a tribute to everyone who has ever been silenced by power. It is designed to support scientists and physicians who have experienced discrimination or corruption in their professional lives. It is designed to provide legal and educational resources to those who have been targeted for telling uncomfortable truths. It is designed, above all, to keep others from being erased the way my mother was. The foundation also provides scholarships to students who might otherwise never reach medical school. Students from rural areas, students from underrepresented communities, students whose brilliance might be lost to circumstance. When I read their essays, I see reflections of the person I once was, hopeful, idealistic, unbroken. I have donated the stock certificates my mother gave me to the foundation. I have donated a significant portion of my settlement money to endow it permanently. The foundation's office is small, but filled with light. White walls, shelves lined with journals and case files, the faint hum of determination in every corner. Sometimes, when the afternoon sun hits the glass just right, I can almost believe that the room itself is breathing. One afternoon, approximately 1 year after the shareholder meeting, I receive a visitor at my office at Yale. The visitor is my ex-husband, Ethan Blackwood. It has been years since I last saw him in person. Time has changed him. There are lines around his eyes now, a cautiousness in the way he moves. the faint look of someone who has been living inside a series of unspoken apologies. He stands at the door until I gesture for him to enter. He does not sit until I tell him to. "I have come to give you something," Ethan says. His voice is measured, deliberate, as though he has practiced this moment many times. He reaches into the inside pocket of his coat and removes a small velvet pouch. From it, he takes a ring, a wedding ring. The ring I gave him when we were married. It lies in his open palm, small and luminous, catching the weak afternoon light that filters through my office window. The gold gleams faintly, dulled by time and touch, the kind of soft, lived-in sheen that comes from years of being handled but never worn. For a moment, I see not an object, but a memory. The ring sliding onto his hand under the steady warmth of a summer sun, the air filled with the hum of guests, the quiet certainty that love, at least then, had seemed like something that could last. "I have kept this for the past year," Ethan says quietly. His voice trembles just slightly, a ripple of emotion beneath composure. "I kept it because I didn't know what to do with it. I thought about throwing it away. I thought about pawning it. But every time I looked at it, I realized it didn't belong to me anymore. It was never just a symbol of marriage. It was a symbol of a promise I broke." He places it gently on my desk. The metal makes a faint, almost fragile sound against the polished wood, a small, final punctuation to a story that has taken too long to end. "I came to return it to you," he continues, "not as a token of what we had, but as a symbol of my acknowledgement. I failed you, and I failed the truth." His words settle into the space between us like dust, delicate and inescapable. I look at the ring for a long time. It seems smaller now, smaller than I remember, yet its weight feels enormous. Every reflection of light on its surface holds years of silence, years of complicity, years of what we both chose not to say. Ethan is offering not reconciliation, but recognition, and perhaps that is rarer, and in some strange way, more sacred. Outside, a breeze brushes against the window pane. A leaf skitters past on the sidewalk below, turning end over end until it disappears into shadow. I think of how easy it is for something once whole to be carried away by the smallest current. Ethan clears his throat. "I also came to give you this." He reaches into his coat pocket again and removes a small USB drive, matte black, unremarkable except for the way his hand trembles slightly as he holds it out. "This contains additional recordings," he says. "Recordings I made of my father over the past year. Confessions, admissions, things he said after losing everything. I'm giving them to you, and to the Department of Justice, as evidence. I can't undo what was done, but I can at least make the truth complete." I take the drive from him. It is light in my hand, but the weight of what it carries feels immense. Inside this small piece of plastic and metal, there are voices, echoes of power unraveling, a man coming to terms with the ruin he caused, a son trying, perhaps too late, to make amends. Ethan looks down at the floor, then back up at me. His eyes are tired, but there's something new there. Not remorse exactly, but clarity. "I don't expect forgiveness," he says softly. "I just know that I finally understand something I should have known all along. Protecting my father is less important than protecting truth. Family loyalty cannot supersede justice." For the first time in years, I believe him, not because his words are perfect, but because they are unadorned. For once, he isn't trying to persuade me. He's simply telling the truth. And perhaps that is all any of us can do when the wreckage settles. He leaves without asking to stay, without the pretense of closure. The door closes behind him with the softest sound, the kind that marks the end of something that had already been over long before either of us admitted it. Later that week, my mother comes to visit. When I open the door, for a moment I don't recognize her. Time has been both kind and cruel. She has aged, not in the way that diminishes, but in the way that refines. Her hair, once dark and restless, is streaked with silver that catches the light like threads of frost. There are lines around her eyes now, but they are not marks of grief. They are lines carved by endurance. The years she spent in hiding have etched their story into her posture, into the deliberate way she moves, into the softness that now lives in her silence. But there is something else too, something I've never seen before: peace. She looks lighter, as though she has finally laid down a burden she carried for decades. "I have something to tell you," she says. Her voice is calm, measured, but beneath it I hear the tremor of emotion restrained too long. She sets her handbag down and removes a worn folder from inside. The folder is thick, the edges softened from handling. She hands it to me, and as I take it, I feel the faint texture of embossed paper, legal documents. "I've decided to donate the majority of my remaining assets to the Margaret Radford Foundation," she says. Her tone is matter of fact, but her eyes are luminous. "Mother," I say softly, "you've already given me so much." She shakes her head gently. "No," she says, "I gave you the tools you needed to pursue justice, but you were the one who used them. You were the one who stood against power. You were the one who refused to look away." Her hand tightens on mine. "I'm not giving you more. I'm just helping you finish what you've already begun." For a long time, neither of us speaks. There's nothing left to say that words could contain. In the silence, I hear the faint tick of the clock, the hum of life continuing somewhere beyond the walls. A reminder that time, once weaponized against us, now moves gently again. "Finally," she says, "I'm proud of you." Her voice is barely above a whisper. "Not because you won, but because you refused to stop." The simplicity of that statement feels like a benediction. That evening, we drive home together. She sits in the passenger seat of my car, gazing out the window. The city stretches before us, a mosaic of light and rain. The streets shine with reflections: neon blues, amber street lamps, the white trails of headlights curving into distance. The world looks clean, rinsed by water. The car itself is almost silent, a hybrid, practical, and unassuming. The steady hum of the engine is soft enough that we can hear the rain tapping against the windshield, a rhythm both melancholic and forgiving. In the back seat, a framed photograph rests against a folded coat. It's a picture of her, my mother, decades younger, standing in a lab surrounded by glass beakers and notes. Her hair is tied back, her smile unguarded. The light from the passing street lamps catches the frame, making it glow faintly, like a relic of faith preserved through fire. As we drive, the rain deepens. My mother traces a droplet on the window with her fingertip, following it as it slides down and vanishes into the black edge of the glass. I think about inheritance, not the kind measured in currency or property, but the kind that lives in the marrow, the inheritance of conviction, of courage, of moral endurance. I think about how inheritance does not always move downward from the powerful to the privileged. Sometimes it moves backward, from those who have learned to tell the truth to those who are willing to carry it forward. I have inherited my mother's certainty that truth matters more than comfort. I have inherited her willingness to stand alone when silence is easier. I have inherited her understanding that justice moves slowly, but that motion itself, that relentless crawl toward light, is its own victory. And she, in turn, has inherited something from me, the knowledge that her life's work mattered, that her story, once buried beneath deceit, found its way back to daylight, that her daughter had the strength to finish what she started. This, I realize, is what legacy truly means. It is not the passing down of possessions, but of purpose, not the transfer of property, but of principle. Legacy is not about who inherits the house, it's about who inherits the truth. As the car glides along the empty road, I glance at my mother. The rain catches her reflection in the glass, merging her face with the glitter of the city outside. Her eyes are half closed, her breathing slow, steady. This, I think, is how justice arrives. Not as thunder, not as spectacle, but as quiet comprehension. Justice arrives when people decide that truth matters more than reputation. Justice arrives when accountability outweighs appearance. Justice arrives when inheritance reverses its direction, when power finally moves backward toward integrity. This is the reverse inheritance. This is what happens when legacy is no longer measured by control or wealth, but by conscience. When the only thing we pass down that truly endures is the courage to speak and the strength to bear the truth's cost. The rain deepens. The windshield wipers move rhythmically, steady and patient. My mother closes her eyes, and I know she's not sleeping. She's resting in something quieter than rest, acceptance. I look at her and realize that, for the first time, we are both free. From fear, from secrecy, from the long echo of power's shadow. The road stretches ahead, silvered by rain. The headlights carve a path through darkness. The work is not done, but it moves forward. Through me, through her, through whoever comes next. And for the first time since everything began, that is enough.